Good morning to you, Treasurer.
Good morning. Lovely to see you again, Alan.
So technically the recession is over, but we shouldn't get too excited, should we?
Well, there's certainly a long, hard road ahead, and the Australian economy's been hit with a once-in-a-century pandemic and an economic shock that has not been, the likes of which have not been seen since the Great Depression. So it is a very difficult time ahead, and even for businesses in tourism, in aviation, as long as those international borders are closed, they're going to continue to do it tough. But yesterday's numbers do show that the economic momentum is gaining ground, that the economy is growing, 3.3% in the September quarter, the single largest increase since 1976. So this is the economic recovery that Australians have worked very hard for, and as long as the virus is kept under control, the recovery will continue to gain pace. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think we would have seen that recovery without the stimulus payments we all received. But as you say, a quarter of growth off the back of a very bad 6 months. We've had so much damage done. Hundreds of thousands of people still can't find work. Support can't end in March, can it?
Well, it doesn't. There are a whole range of economic measures that the government has announced that will continue well into next year and the year after, and indeed in the period after that. In the budget, we announced a JobMaker hiring credit, which will see employers receive support to take on employees who've been on the unemployment queues. We put in place investment incentives for business, and small business will be able to buy, to sell, to install, to service and maintain those assets. We're supporting apprentices with a 50% wage subsidy. We're bringing forward infrastructure spending to create jobs around the country. These are the measures that we have undertaken, along with tax cuts, that are going to deliver more money to the pockets of 11.5 million Australians. That's going to help continue Australia's economic growth story beyond next year.
That's going to help. What's not going to help, of course, is the escalation in our trade war with China.
Well, certainly that is a very challenging relationship right now, and China's our #1 trading partner. It's worth over $200 billion a year, but it's a mutually beneficial relationship, Ali. I mean, our iron ore has helped underpin China's economic growth. Our agriculture is amongst the best in the world, and Chinese tourists and Chinese students have come to Australia in large numbers. So we want to get that relationship back to where it was, and we're willing to engage in a respectful bilateral dialogue, but obviously that is difficult at this time.
I say it's all fine to say that, but what's the point if they're not going to come to the party? How are you going finding new trading partners in regards to Australian barley, Australian wine? Are you helping out our industries there?
Well, we've signed a range of free trade agreements since coming to office, opening up new markets, whether it's with Indonesia, whether it's securing a free trade deal with Japan or with Korea, or even the more comprehensive multilateral agreements. That's all opening up markets to Australian producers, and we'll continue to provide that support to them.
Well, what's happening with China, of course, hurts our recovery, but what helps it is the fact that looks like we're getting this vaccine. What impact is that going to have on our recovery? Because even with a rollout in March, which I think is what you're talking about, industries like tourism and universities, they're going to need help well into 2021, aren't they?
Well, this is a positive move out of the United Kingdom. Their situation is somewhat different to Australia. They've had more than 1 million COVID infections, nearly 60,000 deaths. In Australia, there is not one person who's in ICU or on a ventilator due to COVID right now. But we have the vaccines going through our own regulatory approval process. The expectation is that will conclude by the end of January, and then if everything is safe for the public, then it will roll out from March. In the budget, Ali, I had an expectation and a forecast that a vaccine would be rolled out across the country by the end of next year. If that occurs 6 months earlier, that will provide a $34 billion boost to the Australian economy. So any vaccine that is earlier than what we expected at budget time is upside for the economy.
Well, I think it is great to see the numbers that we saw yesterday, but the opposition says that you need to lose the smirk. Does that needle you?
Well, again, they can resort to cheap political attacks. We'll focus on the economy. They've been, unfortunately, talking down the resilience of the Australian economy, and their disappointment in yesterday's numbers is not matched by how Australians are feeling, that the economy is now getting back on track. That being said, there are a lot of Australians who are doing it tough. and we'll continue to be there to support them as we did from the start of this crisis, through this crisis, right to the end of this crisis.
Josh, you're being very, very serious this morning.
Don't stop smirking.
I thought you'd smirk at the question.
Well,
You don't like it, do you?
I'm certainly encouraged by these numbers, but the results are very much a reflection of the hard work of all Australians, and those numbers belong to them.
Oh, good. Well said, Josh. Thank you for joining us this
Thank
morning.
you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome.